Hi, and welcome to the Pink Sheep Tales podcast. Pink Sheep Tales? What's this all about, I hear you ask? Well, the name is based on the old saying, black sheep of the family, and tales, T-A-L-E-S, is a play on words because we'll be hearing people's life stories. So through this podcast, I'm so excited to be able to share these remarkable stories from inspirational children and adults with you. These everyday people are building amazing businesses, excelling in their careers, exceptional in their industries, choosing unique career paths, and all in the name of living their best life. My goal is to encourage listeners to follow their passions and be inspired by our pink sheep who have and are doing just that. So let's do it. Let's open the gate and hear this week's Pink Sheep Tale. So you were one of the last to be trained as a nurse in the hospitals, which is really interesting. One of my best friends, she's doing a nursing degree at the moment. She just started this year. And she sends me pictures of the classrooms, so the pretend hospital rooms. That's right. I'm like, oh, look at your little patients. Are they alive? Like, what's happening there? But she loves it. So she loves all the prac classes and everything.
Because they have the robots now. I was thinking about going back into nursing a couple of years ago, just before this under the lino thing kicked off. I had actually gone to the Queensland University of Technology, and they said I would have to do my whole nursing degree again from scratch because I've been out for more than 20 years. And I'm like, oh, God, I would hate to do it from scratch. And I went and looked through their nursing unit, and they had, like, you know, the crash test dummies, the dummies, but they're all technologically like real people. So they breathe and their heart, so they simulate these things in this room, in the bed with the patient, and they'll make the patient have a heart attack, and you have to bring them back to life. And they have the computer in the other room. They're all watching you from behind this glass window that you can't see them. And I think it was much better in the old days when I would have been mortified to have had people watching me do that for real. But it's a wonderful way of learning because you actually get to see if people can do this stuff, But I might have flown under the radar in the old days. I never had to do CPR on a patient the whole time I was a nurse.
Really?
No. But it was my biggest fear.
Yeah. Well, my friend, her prac exam the other day was video recorded.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then shown to others. Yes. I know. Yes. It's terrifying.
So there's an added layer there. If people are a little bit camera shy,
absolutely,
they might be a great nurse. But it's all, I'm sure they've got many, many students and they have many, many things to do. And it's just an advancement. And,
that's right. And it's just one little part of the assessment.
That's right.
But I guess it's teaching people, even the shy ones, when you're a nurse, you have to step out of that because you have to learn to be assertive and get the attention of other people when things aren't going right. So.
And this is off topic as well. But Joe was telling me that there's a very, very big push at the moment to have students, once they're out in the workforce, advocating for patients, which what we've just gone through with my father was a really big eye-opener for me, that there are a lot of health practitioners who are with the book, and it's very hard to go off topic. It's very hard to think outside the box. So which caused a few problems. I know everyone's trying to do their best. I'm a very vocal person, and kind of, if things aren't making sense, I'm happy to talk about
Ask
it.
Questions,
which actually benefited my dad and our family. So it's great to hear that that's actually a massive topic, that they are seeing a big discrepancy from the older generation of nursing who are, that we go A, B, C, that's yes, no, we don't step out, to the younger ones, once they're in the workforce, having that confidence to speak up if they think, no, I don't know if this is right, or I'm not understanding why are we doing this, even just to say that. And if they're wrong, they're wrong, but at least they've
asked the question.
That's right. They know for another time.
We were taught not to ask questions, Christine. You know, the doctors, the surgeons, the charge nurses, whatever came from them, you just followed orders. You didn't ask questions. And the people who asked questions often didn't last very long. And so, you know, we were taught poorly. And I think this generation coming through now, they are questioning all the time, and people don't like it. But, you know, thank goodness that they are. My kids do. Why do I have to do that? Mummy, why do I not put my elbows on the table while I'm eating? Oh, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Well, that's just what my parents taught me. It's rude. Well, why is it rude? What is it saying? Yes, that's a very good question. and it challenges these things that you have done all your life, having no idea why, and then you actually discover that the reason you don't put your elbows on the table and the reason you have to eat in a certain way is to prove to the social class that you are eating with that you are a step above them or that you're their equal. If you put your elbows on the table, then it means you're in a lower class, you haven't been taught etiquette, and you are doing the wrong thing by your family. And it's such a stupid thing because at your own dinner table, there's no class. You are your family, right? Irritating things like eating with your mouth open, that's more of an irritant than anything else. But, you know, if you don't have an answer to a question, then you have to question why it is you're doing that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I like when I interview the young kids for the Pink Sheep Tales. It's so great. And I like to hear that they're questioning, because that's how progress is made. And if they stop asking questions, or they're told, oh no, don't, you just do whatever people who are older than you tell you to. Oh, well, that's a bit, you're kind of cutting off their creativity as well. Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And as a parent though, Christine, you know, until your children are of a certain age, that is the relationship you have with them. You tell them, you know, you do this and this is what you do, but you don't have to say why in the early days. But then when they start asking why, you need to have a good answer. Otherwise you need to rethink what you're doing.
That's right. Oh, good side topic. Good side talk. But yeah, I'm so happy to hear that that's what's going on in the nursing community at the moment. Yeah, and my little friend, she's very... She had been in childcare for many years, and she's just very much that nurturing, really loving person.
She should be doing it then.
Yeah, and I could tell she would just do it anyway. It was kind of like isn't that just what we're going to do anyway? So anyway, side topic, awesome. But I've made a note as well, your mum, so with nursing, so I know that your mum does these beautiful drawings of babies for are they stillborn?
Yeah, stillborn babies. Yeah, and that's another thing that's changed about the nursing thing as well. But yeah, mum was a midwife. She's retired now, but she's an artist as well. She used to work in the special care nursery with the little tiny babies and the sick babies. And she would do these little sketches on night duty of the babies while they were sleeping. And they, you know, might have tubes in intensive care all over them. And the mum and dad would only be allowed to put their hands through like the holes in the humidity crib. They, you know, with gloves on, they might not even be able to touch their baby's skin. And so, you know, it was a difficult time for parents. And mum used to do these little portraits of the baby without any tubes and so on. And she would leave them on night duty just next to the crib, and she'd go home at 6, 7 in the morning, and they never knew who the nurse was who was leaving these little pictures. And she got found out. And the social work department, often the babies would die, that she would have done the pic, and no one had taken any pictures of the baby without any tubes. And so the social work department asked her if she would start to do portraits of the stillborn babies. It was just an idea and a whim that they had. And so she started to go down to the morgue and spend time in the morgue doing these portraits and giving the parents a beautiful remembrance of their child and something they could put up on a wall.
Yeah.
Because back in those days, the baby was taken away from the mother and the father very quickly, and they didn't get time with them. But today, they're allowed to nurse their baby. They can keep their baby with them for a day or two, at least. And, you know, they take photographs. They've got photographers take these beautiful pictures with the baby even after they've passed to share with family members and so on. So it's certainly changed in the last, 100 years, I suppose.
Does your mum still do the...
Yeah, she does. She does. She works for an organisation called SANS, which is the Stillbirth and Neonatal Death Society, and they are an Australia-wide, worldwide organisation. So...
And they offer many services for...
counselling and support and remembrance services to keep their babies' names spoken about and so on. I do work for them as well as a counsellor sometimes with my journaling classes.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, it's good.
And I remember when you first told me that your mum does that. I thought, that's so lovely. Like that's a very big, a huge gift that she's given to parents, and it would also be quite an emotional experience for her as well, I'd imagine. So
yeah, I think it probably was a lot more in the early days, and now she's used to it. It sounds terrible. Each one is emotional for her, and the relationship she has with the parents while she's doing the work for them. But because a lot of it's done online, like they might email her pictures of their baby and she'll do the portrait and she'll post it to them. So she doesn't often meet the babies or the parents anymore. So she can keep a bit of emotional distance from them.
Oh, that's good. And technology.
I know, again.
Reaching out again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for the good. Like,
yeah,
that's great.
Exactly.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, because it's a really lovely story. And it kind of ties in how you've had that nursing influence with your mum as you're growing up.
Definitely.
So,
yeah.
Great. I was saying as well, I love a good love story. I love hearing how people met and how Cupid struck you. And so, your husband David, would you like to tell us your little story of meeting?
Oh gosh, the David meeting story. He'd be mortified because, but that's okay. David and I met at a mutual friend's 21st, and I was working at Lifeline and she was one of my students. I was training her how to become a counsellor, and she was turning 21 and I was 24. I was like, should I go to this party or not? It's probably not good if I go to a student party, and it's okay. And I wasn't seeing anyone at the time, and I had my eye on a chap that I knew was going to be at the party, and it was a cross-dress party. So we had to go, the girls went as boys and the boys went as girls, and I turned up to this party, and the boy I was interested in, as I arrived at the party, he was coming down the stairs with his girlfriend.
Oh.
So I was like, that's crap, didn't know I had a girlfriend. So I sort of walked into the party going, there goes that, I wasn't heartbroken. It was just unfortunate. And I'm in my suit and I'm standing there nursing a drink and looking around me at a room full of men dressed up as women. And they looked better as women than they did as men. And the girl whose party it was had a brother who was gay. And a lot of these friends were gay men, and they did it so well that you could tell that they were not a straight man when you started, like, winking at them. You're like, okay, he looks too good. I don't think he's... No. And so you could tell the availability in the room based on how good they looked. Then I saw David literally across a crowded room. He was wearing the ugliest dress I've ever seen. He'd borrowed it from his friend's mum, and a polka dot number, and he had engineer boots on. Most of the room had high heels on, and he was wearing these engineering boots, and he had, a tuft of chest hair kind of poking out the top of the dress. And he saw me at the same time, and it was literally like a spark went across the room.
Oh.
And I said to the girl standing next to me, "Who is that guy?" And she said, "He's with me."
Oh, really?
And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's terrible," because I think he was the one. And it turns out that they had actually broken up a couple of days earlier, and she was, she was there. It was his birthday as well. It turned out that she was there to have one last go, and it didn't happen. And we pursued the spark. The happy days. So we've been married 20 years this year, and we've been together 25. So for our 20th anniversary, we're going to have a cross-dress party.
Oh, how brilliant!
Yes.
Oh, and will he try heels this time?
Oh my God, no! But I'm sure he'll wear a really ugly dress. He's already got his eye on the number.
Oh, he's picked. How good of him! He's already thinking about his outfit.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's so great! And you have such a history in this house as well. So you were married just behind. Your house.
Well, we bought the house. We'd been together a couple of years, but we bought the house in our early days, and it was a real doer-upper. And we renovated it. And the end of the renovation, which we did 100% ourselves, we decided to get married in the little chapel behind the house on the grounds of the old Bishop's Bourne in Milton. And we had the reception at the house to have a housewarming party and a wedding reception all in one. So, yeah, this house has there's a lot of feeling and emotion that goes on in this house.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And now the kids are growing up in it.
Absolutely.
So hopefully they'll hang around after they're like 18.
Oh, you think? You think, hopefully?
Yeah.
I think there's no doubt, actually.
Oh, good.
Life is far too good for them, these kids today. But we have decided that if the kids decide they want to stay here, they have to manage their own lives. They have to do their own washing. They have to help cook. They have to be an active part of the household and not just someone who comes home and dumps their washing in front of me and walks out again. Not having it. Not doing it.
No. Well, last time I was here, or did I see on Facebook? I think it was on Facebook. The kids cooked you dinner a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. They because of this book, I was so embroiled in the book, and I'd had a conversation with the kids and David last year to say, look, I'm knuckling down for the next 6 months to write this book. I will be as present as I possibly can be, but I really need your help. And I taught the kids how to make a couple of dinners, how to make their own breakfasts, including scrambled eggs. And, both of them know how to cook full meals now from scratch. They know how to make salads. They know how to do all sorts of things. They know how to read recipe books and turn it into a real thing. And they're only 10 and 11. And they were forced to out of necessity. So we already have a good sort of thing going.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And so speaking of Will and Kitty, so 10 and 11.
Yeah.
I met them when they were
4 and 5.
Yeah, tiny. And you're all going on a big adventure next year, which we were talking about just before the interview as well, which I think is so exciting. And more children and families should do this. So would you like to tell us about your big sailing adventure?
Yeah, well, it came about. David and I did a sailing trip about 15 years ago from England to America. And we were on a boat for 2 years, and we, lived a very exciting, adventurous lifestyle. And we stopped when I fell pregnant with Will. And we have always said that we want to introduce it to the children as well. I have a theory that as an adult, if you know another language, you should teach your children that other language. So if you know how to sew, you should teach your children how to sew. The language of a skill. And my dad's a sailor, and he never taught us how to sail. But it's in our blood somehow. So we know how to sail, we know how to manage the sea, and we would like to give our children a skill that we have, and it's kind of our responsibility, really. So we're taking out a couple of years to take the kids on a sailing trip from Germany back to Australia. And yeah, that's that they're going to be taken out of school. We're going to homeschool them on the boat, and they're young enough that they can bounce back into high school when they get back easily, I think. I probably have the intellectual capacity for teaching 10, 11, 12-year-olds, but anything after that, this is our time to do this sort of trip.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And like you said, they are at that age where I think it's going to be more beneficial for them to see the world, meet other people, have this great time with yourselves, because they're coming into the teenage years where they're going to friends.
That's
and
right.
figuring out their own little personalities and how they're going to interact in the world. They're going to gravitate maybe a little bit away.
Yeah.
So it's a great time for this bonding for your family as well, but also growth for them. I would have loved to be taken out of school and travel to Australia, or my mum did a huge travelling, went around Australia with her girlfriend when my brother and sister were tiny.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think they remember much of the trip, but just my mum and her girlfriend going around. I thought, that's such a great adventure.
More people need to do it.
Yeah.
I know kids who are taken out of school to do 6-month trips around Australia, or in a car, or like a van or something, and it's not always great though, because kids often feel as if they're missing out on something. My daughter's just made some wonderful friends at her school, and she'll feel the pull away. But again, technology helps us out. We've got social media. The kids can stay in touch with each other. They can FaceTime. All that stuff we did as kids with writing letters to each other. They can do that again, only they can do it immediately online. They can write, they can type, part of their assignments will be to write letters from me. I'll make them do that. And so that'll help their writing skills. And I think it'll be, again, technology wins the day.
And I can see maybe another book coming out of this trip. How about you?
Maybe. I think if I take the time to write, but I don't want to do a boring, this is what we did and this is what it was like. And, I think...
interesting people you meet along the way.
Possibly. I mean, that it would be great to write about other people, because there's always interesting people in the sailing world. But I wouldn't... I'm still toying on how to write that story, because there've been many stories written about sailing adventures. We'll see. Maybe an historical look at sailing through my family, because we go back years in the boating industry on my dad's side. So maybe an historical sort of travel through time would be fun.
Did your parents meet in England?
No, they met in the south of France.
Oh, had your dad sailed there?
Yeah, he was working on... He was a marine engineer, so he worked on the big super yachts in their engine rooms. So he made sure that, the actually they didn't have billionaires back then. The millionaires who owned these boats were well catered for in the engine area. So, yeah, Dad used to wear like a proper uniform, like a white jacket with everything on it, and a proper hat. Cap, yeah. And he met my mum in the south of France while she was nursing there. Oh. Very romantic. That's another book in my head, The Midwife and the Mariner.
Oh, how cute. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to follow all your adventures from that trip. And so that's before you were just mentioning you're purchasing the boat.
Yes.
So you're purchasing one in Germany.
That's
what's going on.
Yeah. And we're actually, the last time we sailed from the UK, we spent a year in the Med, looking at the Italian islands and Italy and Spain and Portugal and so on. But this time we're going to buy the boat in the north of Germany, and we're going to sail around Denmark and Sweden and Norway and all the Scandinavian countries before we come down south. So we'll have 23 hours a day of sunlight, and look at some of the most beautiful places in the world.
Have you got any previous sailing stories? I've got a little bit of a fear of the water, and I was watching some shows the other day, and it was this, huge seas, like 10-meter high waves and things like that, and I was just like, I don't know how I would cope with that. But have you got any?
Yeah, we have. I mean, we're caught in a couple of pretty hairy situations. Usually, if you're a good sailor, a savvy sailor doesn't leave the harbour when it's like that. So you put off your trip, and as long as it takes to get calmer seas and good winds, not high winds. But we were travelling from Gibraltar down to the Canary Islands. It's about a 3 or 4 day sail out in the open sea, and the weather window was perfect. The seas were great. The winds were good, but there'd been a cyclone off the coast of Ireland, which was up there, but what it did was the tail of the cyclone whipped down the coast of Africa and made these really big seas, and the wind was unrelenting for sort of 2 of the 3 days that we were sailing, and we were not expecting it, and it was just the 2 of us, and the waves started catching up with us. So we were surfing, literally the boat was surfing down these waves that surfers would have loved, but when you're in a yacht, the fear is that it will pitch pole or roll. Pitch pole is when it goes nose into the bottom of the wave, and the back of the boat flips over the top of itself, so it rolls that way. And rolling is when you go sideways down a wave, and the wave goes over the boat when it's sideways and rolls it that way. So we were being caught up by the waves, so they were breaking over the back of the boat. We were going slower than the waves were, and we had an incident where a wave washed over the back, and David was thrown from one side of the boat to the other, and he landed on the autopilot and turned it on, which means he didn't have control of the wheel. So when he got back up to turn the boat around to surf down the wave, the wheel was stuck because it was in autopilot, and we were side on to the waves that were coming in. And so we got knocked down. It was absolutely the most terrifying thing we've ever been through. So the boat went down on its side, but by then David had realised what had happened. He turned the autopilot off, and the wave sort of washed over us. We didn't roll, and then the boat righted itself, and he was able to turn it around and correct it and continue on in that path. But we had to hand steer that boat through those conditions for nearly 2 days. We didn't sleep. We were getting 5 minutes sleep at a time. We thought that was it. We said goodbye to each other. Really? We were pretty sure that was the end of our time together. And it was awful. Whoa. But just as we thought that was it, dolphins appeared at the front of the boat, and they were surfing alongside us. And we were like,
Caylie, I've got goosebumps.
Yeah.
It
was, and the boat was a mess. We couldn't go down below. We were both tethered on, so we wouldn't have gone anywhere, but we'd lost half the equipment, safety equipment had gone off the back of the boat. We were more tight. We were seeing pink butterflies by that point. But the dolphins pretty much led us into calm waters. And, we arrived where we were supposed to be, and I pretty much lay on the floor in the fetal position for about 4 hours before I would do anything. When we got there, I was just so happy to be alive. And that's when we threw out the contraception. That's when I said, I'm not waiting anymore. That was too close. We had decided to wait till we got back to Australia, and I said, no, we're not doing that. We're going to start trying for a family now, because, that we came out of that, we survived, and now I actually have to do what I really want to do, and that's to have a baby. So,
Oh, wow. Caylie. That's an amazing story. Like, literally, I keep getting these goosebumps. Oh, my gosh. And
And I hope that never happens again, because my children, see, we're sailing with the kids now, so we can never be in that position. So we can't have those kinds of situations.
No.
So we have to be very careful about when we choose to take the boat out.
Exactly. So is that a sailing insight that if dolphins appear,
I think so. I think dolphins suggest that it's like okay, like that. You know, I don't think I've ever heard of dolphins coming out in the middle of a storm or a hurricane or anything like that. Dolphins will forever represent salvation to me.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's an amazing story. That's like one of my worst fears.
Yeah.
And
mine.
Yeah.
And it took a lot to get back sailing again after that. We had to take the boat out just for a day sail a couple of days after we got to one of these islands in the Canaries. And I'm like, I don't want to go. I just want to sit on the beach. And David's going, no, you have to. It's getting back in the saddle again and remembering that we actually love sailing and that it's not like that every time. And we took it out on a cracking day. It was beautiful and the waves were perfect and the wind was just right. Everything went well. So when we got back, it was like, okay, all right, no, we got this. It's all good.
And how old were you and David when this happened?
Yeah, 35, 36.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh God! Thank you for sharing that story. That's like a movie.
Yeah, actually, that is just that segment. It was enough.
Yeah.
For a movie, getting through that. Yeah.
I'll get on to Mr. Hollywood while I'm talking to Mr. Facebook.
Yes. Perfect.
How long after that did you arrive back in Australia?
Oh, well, we pretty much fell pregnant a week later.
Oh, wow.
That was not supposed to happen. And we were on our way back to Australia then. But unfortunately, we would have had to have given birth in the middle of the Pacific somewhere, given the timing of the trip. So we pulled up in America and had the baby there in New York. Will was born in New York. And then we lived there for a year and we flew back to Australia in 2008 and we shipped the boat back here.
Oh.
So we never finished the trip. We never did that Pacific crossing. We didn't go to the Galapagos Islands. We didn't hang out in the French Polynesian Islands or any of that cool stuff. So we're going to do that with the kids.
Oh, fantastic.
So we got, the whole journey, the sailing journey was about 2 years. And the trip we do with the kids will be about 18 months.
And was it an easy task to have the kids out of school for 2 years?
I don't know yet.
Oh,
I'll tell you. No, we haven't told the schools yet.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. You just do distance education.
Oh, good.
There are ways and means of educating them, and you're allowed to. There's no law that says you can't. So.
Oh, good. Good.
It's all good.
Excellent. Oh, glad we don't have to worry about that. I don't have to talk to Mr. Education.
No.
We're sort of coming up to close to when we met.
Yeah, that was so we got back 2008 and then you and I met about 4 or 5 years later. So, yeah, what happened between then and then, that probably would be a whole other podcast.
Yeah. I'd love to do another podcast with you.
Well, you can do podcasts too another time. Yeah. Oh, no, there's always stories in this house. We seem to attract them.
Yeah.
We're very, I was going to say dynamic. That's not the dramatic. That's the word. I seem to have drama follow me wherever I go.
Adventure.
Okay, adventure. Thank you. That's very kind. We are adventure seekers, but not like abseiling and adrenaline junkie sort of adventure, but more life is really too short, to just sit on a hamster wheel. And we've learned, I'm not doing anything now that I was doing when I left school. Are you? Are you doing now what you thought you'd do when you left school?
Oh, so no one is surprised that I do cleaning and organising.
Oh, well, the OCD part, maybe. But look where you've taken it.
Yes. So I never, podcasting, I never thought
running
about
your own business. And doing all of these wonderful things with tiny houses and all of the other like cultural things that you do with art and beautiful ways you dress and all of the retro stuff that you're into.
Caylie.
You didn't have that when you left school, and our kids don't have it either. Like, they don't know what they want to do when they're older. And if we send them to uni and make them do this sort of thing, hoping that they will become an accountant, that's not going to work well for them. So
and so when I do last week's interview was with Alicia's little boy.
Max.
So yes, it was so great. So that's what I love. Like,
I love it
because what you're nurturing is this entrepreneurship and this go-getter, this creativity. Yeah, this is what he's all about now, but it can change. You can do whatever you want. You just keep that little energy, that motivation, that self-belief. You keep that going, and just
that's it.
If it morphs 100 times in your life, who cares?
It doesn't matter.
You're happy,
but you do have to have the basics.
Yeah,
the kids need to understand that you got to work hard for everything that you achieve and receive in your life, and that there are going to be disappointments, but most of that is admin. Really, if you can see all of the troubles in your life, all the roadblocks and all of the potholes as just something to build a bridge over, or look at it as an admin task, then break it down into small tasks, and then you can conquer most of those sort of problems.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we might sign it off there. But thank you so much, Caylie, for sharing all of that. And I know a lot of people know your public persona and you through the books.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that people who don't know you personally get a little insight into Caylie as a friend and a personal level, and that sailing story. So yeah, thank you so much.
You're
Caylie,
welcome. It's lovely to talk to you.
Thank you.
You're a good listener, and it's like just having a chat with a friend, obviously.
Yeah. Thank you, Caylie. And congratulations again on the award this week.
Thank you.
I think that'll keep you on a high for a little while.
I hope so, because it's a good award. It's kind of like the Queensland Logies of history.
Yeah. It's brilliant.
So no, it's good, and I need to use the momentum of that to help me, get out there and talk to more people about how to do their own family histories. So
So thank you so much,
It's
Caylie,
okay, my
and we'll
pleasure.
meet again soon.
Okay.
Via the podcast, but
Terrific.
personally as well.
Okay.
Thanks, Caylie.
No worries.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you really enjoyed this week's tale. Let me now invite you to pop over to our Facebook group called Pink Sheep Tales Podcast, and there you can stay up to date with all the exciting news from our pink sheep. You can also find myself at OCD, Organising, Cleaning and Decluttering Specialists on Facebook, or on my website ocdpro.com.au. Well, I'll catch you back here next week. Until then, enjoy yourself.